What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about a video that Doc Trey released recently about a new Fire Emblem game coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 or to the Nintendo Switch that's using Unreal Engine 5. Now he speculated that this new game could be cross-platform, but it definitely seems like it's going to be at least on the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. So let's talk about this because I can add some extra context that Doc Trey 81 didn't necessarily know about, or maybe because he doesn't follow the Fire Emblem series or some of the rumors that's going around, and I've got my own information as well, so I'll add it in here. It's pretty fascinating. So let's first start off with his video. Make sure you check out the video in full. Doc Trey 81, he actually made a 10-minute plus video, which he never does that. All of his videos are like usually 45 seconds long. So it's pretty cool that it was actually more than 10 minutes. It's got a lot of research in there, and I don't want to steal too much of the thunder from that video, but I did highlight some points that I want to talk about and then layer in my own personal information and thought process on what could be happening with the next Fire Emblem game from Nintendo. So apparently there's this company called Area 35 Incorporated, and they are looking to hire. Now they need a senior UX designer in Tokyo, Japan, and with this person, they can work with Unity and Unreal Engine 5 on the Nintendo Switch, mobile, and PC. Now, Fire Emblem Engage does run on the Unity engine, so this is something that we already know. It runs on the Unity engine, so that is a little bit of a change up for a Fire Emblem game. Fire Emblem games vary on what engines they run on based on who's developing it, so it's not out of the question that they could be jumping ship again to Unreal Engine 5. Now, Doc Trey does mention Unreal Engine 5 only has one game on the Nintendo Switch, Fortnite, I think at this point. There might be more, but he's not sure. But Fortnite seems to be the only game that even has that or is going to upgrade to that right now from what we know. Now, in Area 35's hiring post, they said they are, quote, looking for an experienced VFX artist for multiple unannounced AAA game and film projects. Now, one particular game in our immediate pipeline is a long-running, industry-leading Japanese IP with global mass market appeal, which is forging ahead into the next generation using Unreal Engine 5. Feel free to guess, but we can't tell you what it is. Now, one thing here with this post, when they talk about a Japanese IP with global mass market appeal, I think some people will immediately say, well, wait a minute, that's not Fire Emblem, but you have to look at it in context of what these people do and what they're talking about here, because it is going to go into other types of games in terms of things. So with this game in particular, what they're talking about, Fire Emblem is pretty much the leading Japanese strategy RPG. There aren't many other Japanese strategy RPGs that are above Fire Emblem in sales. Fire Emblem Three Houses, from what I understand, is the best-selling Japanese strategy RPG on the market at this point in terms of in current times. There's not anything else that is more than that. So yes, Fire Emblem does have global mass market appeal. It's sold millions of copies, and it's something that's just been around for a very long time. Now, there's also more here. Now, at Area 35, you will get to work alongside leading developers and some of the best talent in the industry, including Yusuke Kozaki from Pokemon Go and Fire Emblem, Takuya Suzuki from Diablo 3, StarCraft 2, Final Fantasy 15, and Michael Chu from Overwatch, Diablo 3, World of Warcraft, in a small, tight-knit team on one of our latest projects. Now, the company is currently in production on a Japanese strategy RPG in a similar vein to classics such as Tactics Ogre, Vandal Hearts, and Bahamut Lagoon. The page before this, it's only listed for the Nintendo Switch as a console, and it's Unreal Engine 5, not an older port of that. So it definitely seems, based off the information, and of course, if you check out the video from Doc Trey, it kind of links things up a little bit more. It definitely seems like this is going to be a Nintendo Switch cross-gen or a Nintendo Switch 2 project with the Fire Emblem game, potentially here. Now, this listing or this posting for a job opening, it links to another company called Safe House that is hiring for the exact same project using Unreal Engine 5. Now, the listing does say, as this project is targeted at lower power devices like the Nintendo Switch, the senior environmental artist will also need to be someone who has the technical ability and know-how to make even complex environments look good while keeping the system load down. Now, in support studios, it seems, based off of this Safe House and also the Area 35 Incorporated, it definitely seems like these could be support studios that are helping out on the next Fire Emblem game. That is what Doc Trey has kind of put together. And once again, make sure you guys check out that video. Also, there could be a Fire Emblem Netflix anime as well, based off the multiple different postings and listings in terms of what they have to say in there too, with film projects and other things. So there could be a Fire Emblem anime, and maybe Nintendo wants to jumpstart things even more. Maybe they saw what happened with the Castlevania Netflix anime, obviously the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Nintendo does have Nintendo Pictures, so they are getting more into that realm of film and maybe anime, TV, stuff like that. So it does make sense if that does happen. This is one of Nintendo's most popular IPs when it comes to the RPG realm, and on top of that, they've already done some Fire Emblem one-off stuff before with anime back in like the 90s. So if they brought that back, that'd be pretty cool, especially if it was like a Netflix anime series with Fire Emblem. I would be down for that. Now, let's talk about this because I find this to be very fascinating. Let me add some extra information here. So what I do know about the next Fire Emblem game is that the next Fire Emblem game is going to be a remake of Fire Emblem 4. That is the information that's been put out there. That's the information that I've heard about as well, that it's going to be a Fire Emblem 4 remake. So this is Sigurd's game. So if you've played Fire Emblem Engage, or if you've played obviously the original Genealogy of the Holy War, Fire Emblem 4, this is the game that's being remade. However, what I heard before this, which makes me believe what's going on with this, is that I heard that this is going to be literally the next big Fire Emblem game where they actually go in on the graphics and also in on the budget and the development and really try to push this. That's what I heard. Now, I heard nothing about Unreal Engine 5 or anything like that, but what I did here, and I talked about it on the Spawncast, I heard that this game is going to be a bigger budget, big Fire Emblem game. Like Fire Emblem Three Houses, for example, that was the big budget Fire Emblem game for the Nintendo Switch. That's where they spent most of their time, or a lot of their time on. Also with Koei Tecmo building that massive story, building the whole whirlwind of events that game is. Now, if you look at Fire Emblem Engage, which I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, well, we just got a Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Engage, which I've talked about many times on this channel, that game was done a while ago. That game was not something to where they just completed it and they're like, all right, here we go. It's went gold. Let's go, guys. We just completed it. Finally, we're ready to go. That game had already been done for quite some time. And I think you can tell, even after you play the game, it definitely feels like an anniversary game. Not that it's not a major good game or big game. I think that if you play the game, you beat the game, you understand the context of what's going on there. And it does seem like they might continue on with the Engage line. That could be a separate thing, almost maybe like Pokemon Legends Arceus and the regular Pokemon Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet, things like that. They could separate the two, and I think that might happen with Fire Emblem Engage, considering what happens in that game and how that game is. But that game's been done, and that game absolutely seems like a smaller project compared to what even Fire Emblem Three Houses was. I think that it was more straightforward. It was more kind of like linear, and I don't think that they had the development problems because of the size, scope, and scale of Fire Emblem Three Houses. They didn't have that with Fire Emblem Engage. So I do think that they've already been moved on, and I feel that Intelligent Systems is not a Nintendo first party. They work with outside companies outside of their own studio to make these Fire Emblem games. But particularly with Fire Emblem, they do put together different people to help out, which we've seen before. Even in this listing, somebody had worked on Fire Emblem before in the past. So I think that it's very possible that this next game, Unreal Engine 5 Fire Emblem, that it is going to be a remake of Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War, and it could be Nintendo Switch 2 cross-gen launch title, whatever you want to call it, because I still feel that this game was going to be revealed sometime within the next 12 months. So sometime between now at this point and 12 months from now, I definitely feel that there's going to be another Fire Emblem game shown off. And it's like, hey, we're already working on this. This is what it looks like, or this is what it's going to be. I don't think that it's going to be like how they showed off Fire Emblem Three Houses, where at a Fire Emblem Direct, where they wanted to show off the mobile game and the 3DS game, they said, hey, we're also working on Fire Emblem, and it's kind of, you know, we're working on it, but we're not going to show you anything. I think that was to instill confidence that the Nintendo Switch was going to get a Fire Emblem, because the headlines would have been Nintendo's not working on a new Fire Emblem for Switch. They're still focusing on mobile and 3DS and all that. So I think that they really wanted to make sure they let people know, and the fans, like, hey, don't worry, you're going to get your Fire Emblem fix on the Nintendo Switch. And we did. We got multiple Fire Emblems on the Nintendo Switch. So that's absolutely a good thing. But going back to this, with this Unreal Engine 5 and everything, I think that it's possible, right? Like Unreal Engine 5 can still work on the Nintendo Switch, but Unreal Engine 5, I'd probably say like Nintendo Switch probably isn't optimized for it the best. I think that it works well with more of the bigger, newer systems, but obviously it can be on there if they really wanted to get it on there. It is a flexible engine. Unreal Engine 4 works pretty good for the most part on the Nintendo Switch, and the 5 could be just as good, if not better, but I'm not a programmer. I don't really know all the details with that, but I definitely think that this could be a cross-gen thing. Now, I do want to get into this because there is discussion about what Nintendo's going to do next generation with their system and what's going down. And I personally feel, I know there's been information and people talking about it otherwise, but I personally feel that Nintendo will have a cross-generation platform. I think that Nintendo, for the first time really in their history, usually they drop off from their past systems. I mean, not all the time. We saw a little bit with the GBA to the DS, where there's a little bit of crossover. You have that backwards compatibility, but usually Nintendo drops things cold turkey when it comes to the next system. But I feel that there might be a little bit of crossover, and it won't just be a launch title, because that's usually what we see with Nintendo home consoles or anything that's considered a home console. As soon as that next system comes out, boom, they drop the last one super fast. We saw that with the GameCube to the Wii. We saw that with the Wii to the Wii U. I mean, it's just one of those things that we always see. We saw that with the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch. They might have a game like Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, right? That's on both systems, or a game like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that's on both systems. But then after that, it's done. However, if you look at what they did with the Nintendo 3DS to the Nintendo Switch, there was absolutely crossover in terms of what they developed for and also what they talked about in their directs, which caused people to be upset. They're like, why are you talking about 3DS? It should only be about Switch, even though we were getting plenty of Nintendo Switch games. And it wasn't like there was a problem in 2017 with Switch games coming out. We had received a lot of them, but people were still upset about that. And we saw it on Twitter and stuff, people complaining about 3DS segments. But what that shows is that Nintendo is willing to support the multiple systems, although it was a bit harder because I think that the infrastructure of the Switch and the 3DS was so much different. I don't think that's going to be the case with the Nintendo Switch 2. I think that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be, once again, NVIDIA. It's going to be a chip that really evolves upon what they did with the Tegra X1, maybe a custom SoC. So I think that they will be able to get that cross-generation flow or that cross-generation style, because remember, you've got 100 million plus Nintendo Switch systems out there. You've got a lot of people that still play on the Nintendo Switch, and I don't think that they're gonna rush out and buy a Nintendo Switch 2 day one. And even if all 100 million people did, there's not gonna be 100 million systems out there for everyone to pick up a Nintendo Switch 2. So obviously there's gonna be people that are still playing the previous one. Heck, we look at the PS4, there are still people that are playing COD and playing certain games that are on PS4. We're still seeing big games come out for PS4 going into 3 years into the generation because it's still selling. So I could see Nintendo employing the same thing here, and maybe Fire Emblem gets a cross-generation release. One of the things that we saw from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch is that Nintendo took a lot of those late-gen Wii U games and said, oh, those are going to be Nintendo Switch titles now. We're porting those over to Nintendo Switch, and I think that the only game, and I feel that the only game that they really left on the Wii U was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Everything else was put on the Nintendo Switch. So what we could see is that Nintendo kind of reversed that and say, hey, we're going to have at least a few games here or there for the Nintendo Switch, because I think that at the launch, this next system, this Nintendo Switch 2, is going to be huge. It is not going to be the same type of way or fanfare that we saw with the last couple generations with Nintendo, where it's been muted at launch. It hasn't been as hyped, except for the Switch. The Switch had some hype, but there was still a lot of people that were skeptical about what it could do. That is not going to be the case with this next system. The hype is going to be absolutely unreal considering the success of the Nintendo Switch. I think it's going to be very similar to the hype that we saw with the Nintendo 3DS initially at launch. Now, obviously, after launch, the sales tanked completely because of the price of the system and lack of software. But beforehand, coming from the DS to the 3DS, that hype was huge. So I think that we're going to see that same type of hype, if not even amplified, now that we're a decade plus later and the gaming industry is bigger. And obviously, the Nintendo Switch is just one of those systems that everybody knows about at this point. So I think that Nintendo's prepping that software. I think that this next Fire Emblem game could absolutely be one of the titles that's lined up for it. And I feel that if you've watched some of my previous videos when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 and what Nintendo's strategy or plan is, I think they want to make sure that they have a lineup of games that's incredibly appealing to help sell the system, especially if there isn't a ton of third party that's available and ready to go. We saw that with the Nintendo Switch, and that was a recipe for success. So that could be happening here too, Nintendo lining up these games, getting them ready, whether it's cross-generation or just the Nintendo Switch 2. So What do you guys think about all this? I find this very fascinating. Haven't had a Nintendo Switch 2 update in quite a while on the channel, but I thought that this would be a good video to do on this Fire Emblem and Nintendo Switch 2 potential situation that's going down. Make sure you check out the link in the description to DocTrey81's video. It's very good, and it also gives some more context to what I'm saying. So if you were confused on some things, check out that video. It's all right there. You'll be able to understand a bit more about the situation and what's going on with the hiring posts and all of that. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Make sure you check out some of my previous videos on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We've got some interesting discussion that's going on, a lot of controversy with some of the stuff. But make sure you check out the videos right here on the screen or my previous Nintendo Switch 2 videos. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.